Scene 3 centers on the aching, often unspoken experience of longing that defines so many queer women's emotional lives, unfolding through the dynamic between Ruby and Celeste in a way that feels both deeply personal and broadly recognizable. At the beginning of the scene, Ruby occupies a familiar role, the attentive helper, the one who anticipates needs, fetches items, and offers quiet affirmation. Celeste, preparing for a date with a man she has idealized for months, remains largely absorbed in her own world, issuing requests with casual expectation and receiving Ruby's efforts without fully acknowledging the emotional weight behind them. This imbalance is not presented as cruelty but as a kind of habitual blindness, a dynamic that many queer women will recognize from experiences of loving someone who does not, or cannot, see them in the same way. Ruby's labor is both practical and emotional. She is not only assisting with eyeliner and curling irons, but also reinforcing Celeste's sense of self, offering compliments and support that go beyond the immediate task. Yet this labor remains unreciprocated in a meaningful sense, creating a quiet tension that builds as the scene progresses. The repetition of Ruby moving through spaces, retrieving items, and returning to Celeste underscores her role as someone constantly in motion yet emotionally stuck, circling around a truth she has not yet voiced. This pattern reflects a broader social conditioning in which women are often taught to express care through service, to prioritize others' needs over their own, and to find validation in being useful rather than being seen. For queer women, this dynamic can become even more complicated, as acts of service and admiration may function as socially acceptable ways of expressing deeper feelings that cannot yet be openly acknowledged. Ruby's devotion to Celeste exists within this ambiguous space, where her actions can be interpreted as friendship or loyalty, while simultaneously carrying an undercurrent of longing that remains largely invisible. Celeste's focus on her date with a man further reinforces this invisibility, situating Ruby's feelings within a heteronormative framework that does not account for them. Celeste is not intentionally dismissive. Rather, she is operating within a script that assumes heterosexual desire as the default, leaving little room to recognize alternative forms of connection. This dynamic speaks to the broader cultural tendency to erase or overlook lesbian desire, particularly when it exists in subtle or non-declarative forms. Ruby's eventual frustration emerges not as a sudden outburst but as the culmination of accumulated moments of being overlooked, each small instance contributing to a larger sense of emotional erasure. When she finally articulates her feelings, expressing that it does not matter what she does or says because she remains invisible, the moment carries a profound weight. It is not simply a confession of romantic interest, but a declaration of existence, a refusal to continue occupying a space where her inner life is unrecognized. This articulation resonates deeply within queer experiences, where the act of naming one's feelings can be both liberating and terrifying, especially when those feelings challenge established relationships or social expectations. Ruby's words disrupt the dynamic between them, forcing Celeste to confront a reality she has not considered. Celeste's initial confusion reflects this disruption. She struggles to understand what Ruby means, highlighting how deeply ingrained assumptions about relationships can obscure alternative possibilities. The scene captures the difficulty of bridging this gap in understanding, showing how even close relationships can be shaped by unspoken boundaries that limit what can be seen or acknowledged. Ruby's declaration that Celeste is always chasing someone else while ignoring what is right in front of her serves as both a critique and a plea, encapsulating the pain of unreciprocated affection while also inviting Celeste to reconsider her perspective. The emotional intensity of this moment is heightened by Ruby's decision to reveal herself more fully, both emotionally and symbolically, as a way of breaking through the barriers that have kept her unseen. This act is not framed as spectacle but as vulnerability, a willingness to risk rejection in order to be honest. The repeated apologies that follow suggest an awareness of the risks involved, a recognition that crossing from unspoken longing into explicit expression can destabilize the relationship. These apologies are not simply about regret, they reflect the internalized pressure to minimize one's own feelings, to soften their impact in order to maintain harmony. This tension between assertion and retreat is a hallmark of many queer women's experiences, where the desire to be seen must be balanced against the fear of losing connection altogether. Celeste's response, though initially uncertain, begins to shift as she processes Ruby's words and the emotional truth behind them. Her earlier preoccupation with her date is gradually overshadowed by the immediacy of the moment, suggesting a reevaluation of priorities that is both subtle and significant. The scene does not present this shift as instantaneous or complete. Instead, it unfolds gradually, allowing space for hesitation and reflection. This pacing reinforces the idea that recognition is a process rather than a single moment, requiring time and openness to fully take root. From a queer perspective, this process mirrors the journey of self-discovery that many individuals undergo, where initial confusion gives way to a deeper understanding of one's own feelings and the feelings of others. The scene's emphasis on emotional intimacy rather than physicality aligns with this perspective, focusing on the internal transformations that accompany moments of connection. In the context of Latina representation, the scene gains additional layers of meaning, as it challenges stereotypes that often limit the portrayal of Latina women to narrow roles defined by family and tradition. By presenting Ruby and Celeste as complex individuals navigating their own emotional landscapes, the film expands the possibilities of representation, highlighting the diversity of experiences within Latina communities. The question of whether a more open society influences women to become lesbians is again reframed here, as the scene illustrates that desire is not created by external conditions but rather revealed through them. Ruby's feelings are not new. They have existed beneath the surface, shaped by her interactions with Celeste and her own internal reflections. What changes is her willingness to express those feelings, a shift that is influenced by the emotional pressure of remaining unseen. In a more open society, such expressions might be met with greater understanding and acceptance, reducing the need for the kind of emotional buildup that leads to moments of rupture. However, the scene also suggests that even in more accepting environments, the challenges of communication and recognition remain, as individuals must still navigate their own fears and uncertainties. Beyond its specific queer context, the scene resonates with broader themes of longing, invisibility, and the desire for acknowledgement that many people experience. Ruby's sense of being overlooked is not limited to romantic contexts. It reflects the universal need to be seen and valued for who one is. This need is often complicated by social expectations that prioritize certain forms of connection over others, leading individuals to question the validity of their own feelings. The film's portrayal of this struggle is both empathetic and nuanced, avoiding simplistic resolutions in favor of a more realistic depiction of emotional complexity. Celeste's gradual shift in awareness underscores the importance of listening and openness in building meaningful connections, suggesting that recognition is not only about being seen, but also about learning to see others more fully. The scene also engages with the broader societal discomfort surrounding women's relationships with one another, particularly when those relationships carry emotional or romantic significance. This discomfort often manifests in two extremes: erasure, where such relationships are dismissed or ignored, and sensationalization, where they are exaggerated for dramatic effect. By focusing on the quiet, emotionally grounded aspects of Ruby and Celeste's interaction, the film resists both tendencies, offering a portrayal that is neither dismissive nor exploitative. Instead, it insists on the legitimacy of women's emotional lives, presenting their connections as worthy of attention and respect. This approach challenges viewers to reconsider their own assumptions about what constitutes meaningful intimacy, encouraging a more inclusive understanding of relationships. The dynamic between Ruby and Celeste also highlights the complexities of power and vulnerability within relationships, particularly when one person holds emotional knowledge that the other does not. Ruby's awareness of her feelings places her in a position of vulnerability, as she must decide whether to reveal them and risk rejection. Celeste's initial lack of awareness, meanwhile, gives her a form of unintentional power, as she is able to move through the relationship without confronting its deeper implications. The moment of revelation disrupts this balance, creating a new dynamic in which both women must navigate unfamiliar territory. This shift reflects broader patterns within queer communities, where relationships often involve negotiating boundaries and expectations in ways that differ from heteronormative models. The scene's emphasis on communication and self-awareness underscores the importance of these skills in building healthy, authentic connections. Ultimately, Scene 3 serves as a poignant exploration of the courage required to be seen, particularly in a world that does not always make space for certain kinds of love. Ruby's journey from silent longing to open expression encapsulates the challenges and rewards of embracing one's emotional truth, while Celeste's response highlights the potential for growth and understanding that can arise from such moments. Together, their interaction contributes to the film's broader narrative about visibility, connection, and the ongoing process of self-recognition, offering a powerful reminder that the act of being seen and seeing others is both deeply personal and profoundly transformative.